This is a little bit unconventional. If you haven't seen us sharpen a card scraper before, this is going to be really unconventional. I haven't seen anybody else sharpen a card scraper the same way as I do it. I haven't seen anybody else. To my knowledge, I'm the only person that does this, or the only person I've come across. So when you are sharpening these, there's no need for you to use a file every single time. Eventually you will have to use a file to get a straight edge. So why do I have to use a file to get a straight edge? Because when we use the burnisher over time, it does actually put the belly in the middle of the edge on both edges. So I did actually check this against the light coming through the window. You're probably not going to be able to see it with the light in the shed, but maybe you can. So I can actually see daylight through the ruler and the edge of the card scraper. So basically that's because when you're going backwards and forwards, you do tend to put more force on the middle because there's more surface area. So obviously when you get next to the edge, you know, it's quite common for these to slip off, and when you're coming back onto this edge, it's quite common for you not to get the edge, just because it's an edge. It is what it is. So as I said, over time you will get a belly. So as I said, not every time you should use a file, and basically you can get away with just resharpening it just with a burnisher, just turning a new hook on it. But this particular card scraper, it has got a belly in it, so I am going to remove that. How I like to do this, I don't have a vise. This probably comes from me using my Roman workbench for so long. So I like to put the file on the mat, and I'm just going to eye this. Once that's done, you will have some burr on the edges, and I just remove them, the same sort of thing. It doesn't take a lot to get them off. That's that finished with the file. I have seen people using sharpening stones, you know, your diamond stones to flatten this, and they're using all kind of jigs and stuff. Each to their own, I suppose, but I just think a lot of people make too much of a deal about sharpening these guys up. And one of the things that a lot of people don't take into consideration is that it's very, very rare for you to get all four corners shaven equally, meaning that you're going to get a good shaving from all four corners. In my experience, it tends to be 2 out of the 4, sometimes 3 if you're lucky. So it doesn't matter how careful you are, what sort of jigs you use, it will never ever be consistent. I've never had that experience myself, even when I used to use a vise and use jigs to sharpen these. I'm using this burnisher. Before I got this burnisher, I was using a screwdriver. I don't actually believe I've still got the screwdriver. So I will say 110%, there definitely is a difference between using a burnisher, which is hardened steel, and using just your regular cheap screwdriver, which I was using. There is a difference. If you're able to get your hands on some sort of burnisher. So what I like to do with the burnisher, I like to put it onto the bench. I like to make contact with the corner, obviously this resting on the bench. And what I like to do, I like to do one side a couple of times, and this just gets away like any sharp edges that I might cut my hands on. If you are going to do this and you've never done it before, I'd highly recommend a pair of gloves. I'm not going to use gloves. I do this all the time. It's no excuse, so wear gloves. Once I've done the one side, Now I'll go back to the side I only done a couple of times. So something to add here, that when I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep the card scraper dead 90 degrees. Now, me keeping it at 90 degrees, dead at 90 degrees, is never ever going to happen, which is good, because when you actually sharpen the card scraper, you sharpen the card scraper traditionally, you do actually come over at 90 degrees, and then you start sloping down ever so slightly. So the sloping down ever so slightly part is good for me, in the sense that because I'm going across here, I'm never ever going to get that at 90 degrees, so it's going to be off. It might be, I don't know, it might be 87 degrees or 85 degrees, or it might be 95 degrees. So I'm never ever going to get dead on 90 degrees, as I said, which is good for me. So it's going to give me that little bit of variation, which is going to help with my hook. Once that's done, I start at the far corner, so I'm not actually making contact with the burr, and I'm going to bend the burr back over. So this is called consolidating. So we've bent it over, now we're going to bend it back, and then we're going to bend it back over again. Something to note when you're actually doing this, don't forget, this is still a sharp edge and this can still cut you. So if you're picking up speed, you know, your finger and your thumb is like about an inch away. So again, it might be worth you wearing a pair of gloves, or if you've got a burnisher that's actually not as long as this, this should really be cut, but I've never bothered. So yeah, you have to really be careful. I've personally never done it myself, but I have seen people on Instagram that have been doing this and they've cut themselves quite severely, so you do have to be careful. So once that's done, I'm just going to go back to the edge again, and exactly the same again, a couple of times just to bend that over so I don't cut myself. There, I can actually feel a nice burr. Just to reiterate what I was talking about before, I'm going to try all four corners or four edges and see how we fare. This is a board of oak. This is European oak, white oak if you will. So I'm going to give all four faces a go and see how we fare with this. So the first one. That's actually not too bad, it's pretty good that. So I'm going to turn it around and try the opposite side. Oh, that's even better, that side. So that's really nice. So I'm going to turn it over. So that's actually not too bad. Now the last one. That's actually not too bad, so it kind of feels like three of them are pretty good. The three sides are pretty good, and there's one side that will shave, but it's still not great. When you're using one of these, you have got to get into the habits of turning it over as you're using it. So what I mean by this is that when you're using it and you start picking up a little bit speed, it's going to get hot. So when you're going along, get into the habit of taking a few strokes, turning it over, taking a few strokes, turn it over, and just keep on going like that. And what this does is that it lets the heat disperse away from one edge while the other edge builds up, and then it's just an ongoing thing. So if you get into the rhythm of doing it, you shouldn't end up with too many blisters on your thumbs. Trust us, I've had a lot of blisters on my thumbs. Another way around this is that you can actually buy suede thumb gloves, I think they're called. I've never used them. It might be something to invest in the future, but as of now, as I said, I haven't used them. So when you are using one of these, you're obviously not going to have it straight. You are going to have it at a slight tilt. That may be about 70 degrees ish. Depending on how it's sharpened, this is going to vary. You know, you might actually get it closer to 90 degrees. You might find that's better. See, that was closer to 90 degrees and that was really tough. So I'm actually struggling to go through it, and that was like, you know, pretty close to 90. I am getting the beautiful shaving from it. So rather than struggle, what I would do and what I am going to do is just set it maybe at 70, 80 degrees. See, as I'm going, I'm just turning over, so I'm not burning my thumbs. So as you can see, it's getting some beautiful shavings. So another thing to consider is that all woods aren't equal. So this is oak. A card scraper works extremely well on oak, extremely well. There is other woods that it doesn't work so great on. So I am going to give you an example of a few woods that I have to hand. So this is some walnut. And already you can see that it's behaving quite differently compared to the oak. It's not taking as much of a shaving. These shavings are kind of more like a fine shaving from a smoothing plane, whereas on the walnuts it's not really like that. I am still getting shavings and it's shaving well, but it's not the same as the oak. It is still shaving nicely. This is spalted sycamore, and that's not shaving very well at all. It's kind of more like sanding it. It's very dusty. So yeah, don't get us wrong, it is actually getting it quite smooth, but it's kind of more like sanding, if that makes sense. This is steamed beech. So again, it's not shaving as well as the oak, but this is actually quite fine and it's quite fluffy. So this is kind of a bit of a mixture between like fine sawdust and some really fluffy shavings. So it's actually not too bad on the beech per se. But this is just some spruce. This is just your regular I think this was a 2x6, I think it was. So this is just your normal construction lumber, or timber, or wood. So let's see how this goes. So yeah, these shavings they're a lot more coarse, and it is actually a bit more difficult to actually get shavings from this. It's actually feeling quite rough as well when I'm taking shavings, but in general, pine doesn't particularly like the cord scrapers. Going back to using this, when you are using it, I did forget to mention that you actually do use your thumbs in the back, and you actually bend the thing. So I mean, it's an ever so slight bend. I mean, the overall distance or the center distance to the straight line of what you're bending is only somewhere in the region, maybe, I don't know, just shy of 1/4 of an inch. So you're not actually bending it a lot. So it doesn't take a lot of bending to get a good shaving. Something else that I see, and it probably gets overlooked, when people are doing that, people are concentrating on the center of the blade or the edge, and I think people forget that if you kind of forget about the middle for a moment, you've still got this side, and that's sharp edge, and it will still get a shaving. So, you know, don't kind of like be using the middle all of the time, because if you're going to go that way, you're just going to have to sharpen it like more. So when I use the edge, I tend to have an overhand grip, so I can get my thumb where it needs to be next to the edge, and obviously the thumb there, and it's exactly the same again. So, you know, same again this side. Something else I like to use these for is when I'm actually making chairs or tables that have got rounded legs or bulb-like legs, or even if I'm making spindles for a chair and such. So the way I like to do this is that I pretty much get it quite close with a draw knife, then the spoke shave, and then I just use the cord scraper, and basically I'm just having a bit of a flicking motion, if that makes sense. These aren't particularly round, these are more like these have been made into a hexagonal, and then I've just started working my way around. So these aren't actually round, but what I like to do, so you can see the little fine shavings I get with these. As you can see, it just gets some really nice fine shavings, and I find that particularly good on, you know, round legs and things like that. So another tip, if this is something that's new to you, round over the edges. Two reasons. First reason is that you're probably going to cut yourself or hurt yourself. One of the two, or maybe both. And the second reason is that when you're actually running this through the work material, you will actually scratch the material because you've got a dead straight edge, and it does actually scratch the material. Sometimes you can't see that it scratched the material until you've actually applied a finish, which when I first started using these and started getting the hang of them, I discovered. So that was a bit of a nightmare, because I basically had to let that dry, take the finish back off, and then, you know, kind of redo it, you know, flatten it all out again, you know, get them scrapes out of it. So 110%. Don't have to be rounded off a lot. I don't know if you can see that. So this is probably due to be rounded over a little bit more. It is starting to lose its round there. It's still okay, but probably when I sharpened it with the file, I probably should have rounded those over a little bit. So that's definitely something to take into consideration if you plan on using one of these a lot. Okay guys, that's it for this one. Let us know what you think. Was any of this helpful? If it was helpful and you did like it, you like what I'm doing, you want to help support us, give us a thumbs up, share the video, and if you're not already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it because it does help the channel out. As I said, let us know in the comments if you've ever seen this method before, other than myself using it. And how do you sharpen a card scraper? Is it something similar, or do you actually use a vise? And that's it for this one guys. Until the next time, I shall see and speak to you guys later.